We don't want any more migrants in our country. This is a statement Claudia Sheinbaum gave right after she closed the border between Mexico and Guatemala. The Mexican president said that Mexico will no longer be a passage for migrants crossing the borders from Mexico to the U.S. And that's because the millions of migrants coming from Venezuela and Central America has to cross through Mexico in order to get to the U.S. But Mexico has said that it has exhausted resources to help migrants and be able to cross borders between Mexico and the U.S. And the government has heard a lot of complaints from the local communities that the community no longer feels safe. And therefore, Mexico has decided to shut down its border between Mexico and Guatemala. Without having the southern Mexican border open, migrants have limited access to roads to be able to reach U.S. soil. The Mexican president said that Mexico can no longer be a passage for the millions of migrants that want to reach the United States, and intends to keep the southern border closed to deter millions of migrants from coming through Mexico. So what's going to happen to the Caribbean currently crossing the Darien Gap in Panama? Mexico intends to use the Mexican National Guard to stop these migrants from entering their country.
Would you look at that? All of a sudden now Mexico wants to enforce border policies. All of a sudden now Mexico doesn't want the migrants there. Their president doesn't want the migrants there. Their president doesn't want the illegal immigrants in her country. The community doesn't want the illegal immigrants in her country, in their country. But why is it that it's only a problem when the U.S. wants the same thing? I don't see, where are the Mexicans? Where are the Mexicans out there protesting for the Guatemalans to stay in Mexico? What is it that the Mexicans say all the time, right? This used to be our land, right? Well, if you know any Mexico history, right? Guatemala was actually part of Mexico at some point. So by your logic, doesn't that land that is currently called Mexico not also part of Guatemala? Does not belong to Guatemala? Or Guatemala belongs to Mexico? Whatever the standard is, right? Isn't that the same logic? Let's apply the same logic. California belonged to Mexico for 21 years or whatever it was, 25. Doesn't matter. It was less than 30 years. But Mexicans still claim that it was stolen and it belongs to them. Well, Guatemala also belonged to Mexico. So technically at some point, that land was also Guatemalan people's land. So by your standard, they should, if they manage to cross the Mexican border, they should be allowed to stay in Mexico.